Good morning. We're all live. Welcome to the 50,000th edition. No, this is Wettermann Homes Q&A. Merry, Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you for joining in and participating. So we had a change of venue here, so we're adapting. So thank you for the, again, coming on. We're going to jump right in. So mostly on this episode, we're going to talk about lot prospecting and a couple other current events. And so we're always going to start off with what we do. We're a Central Florida home builder, licensed contractors, state licensed contractors, and we build in the Central Florida area from West Volusia down to North Osceola and into East Lake County. And we are a new construction single-family home builder, homes ranging from 1,400 to 4,000 plus, from stock plans that we offer, which are customizable, up to custom floor plans. So stock, semi-custom, custom, whatever you want, as long as you can pay the bill, we can pretty much do it. And that's where we are. With time and the money, you can pretty much do anything. So we've got Maddie here as our backup dancer. Sorry, I'm always going to say that. And we're going to have Maddie's contact information in our social media so she can do all kinds of content and everything like that. She handles all that stuff for her. So we'll put that in there, and then you can reach out to her if you want to do social media of any kind, content, podcasts. Are you washing cars yet? So, mostly since we have realtors on here, as always, a side note, we offer and honor your agreements, your buyer's agreements, commission agreements with your buyers, and then we offer full commission. Always, we're going to make note of that.
Meaning we pay commissions. Right. Yes, we do. And we are realtors too, so we have experience on all sides of the transaction as well. So, just an added little tidbit for you.
Yep.
We can help. Yeah, we can help you find property if
lot
you're
prospecting, due diligence, all that kind of thing.
Yep.
So, and what makes us different, as we say every time, we'll send you the list of all of our clients, and you can ask them. And so, ultimately, communication is big with us. Responding. So we're going to do our best there. So either I say, if you don't get in touch with me, I'm dead or sleeping. So. Also, what makes us different, it's a little side note, we're always going to update it with new stuff. Had a client, their well went out, and ultimately what it was, after going down there just before Christmas on the holiday, nothing ever happens on a mundane time. It's always an emergency during the holidays. And so ultimately what happened was a little lizard crawled up in the control box for the well and short-circuited it out. So we went down there and fixed that after some commotion and everything. So we're able to pivot to solve issues, fix problems, and that kind of thing. I was actually on FaceTime with a friend while I was doing it. She was like, how do you know how to do that? And I said, experience. Plus it was pre-Christmas, so I was able to drop what I was doing and help them out because that was an emergency. So
you can always do YouTube University too. You'd be surprised what you can find on there as well. So, but your first call should be to us, and then we'll go to YouTube University.
No, I'm kidding. You won't know the difference.
Yeah, we'll always. If we don't have the answer, we'll get you. We'll point you in the right direction.
So. But we'll get you the answer, that's for sure.
Even if you're not our client, reach out to us if you have questions about building. As Kurt and I are going to get into this podcast, we're going to talk about lots and what you should know preliminarily before you get into a transaction, or certain things to help you narrow your search or to have a better understanding of what to look for when you're looking for a lot.
Considering that, kind of pivoting over and back as far as financing, and so that comes up a lot. Really, three options with financing when you're prospecting a lot. About half of the clients purchase the lot outright. That's ultimately the best way to go because it gives you the most control over the process, meaning obviously once you buy the lot, you have title to it, and then we can go forward with any due diligence and permitting and things like that. It doesn't affect the timeline on the construction loan, which is really important. Sometimes some of the lots require more extensive due diligence when it comes to wetlands and things like that. And when we're dealing with the county and the Environmental Protection Department, that can take time. That chews into our construction loan timeline. So anyways, optimum, pay cash. You can use that as collateral for the down payment on the construction loan. Ultimately, you can use the lot purchase and roll that into the loan. For the most part, we'll have a due diligence period in the purchase contract for the lot so we can get a certain amount of time to complete that due diligence or get as much necessary information as we can before you close on the construction loan. And then the third option is we can do, some of our lenders have lot loan financing, where if you don't have the cash up front for a down payment, it's like 25% or something like that, you can buy the lot and then at least take title to it. We can complete the due diligence from there.
And the due diligence, think of the due diligence like a home inspection on a regular real estate property. So it's obviously different, but it's kind of the same process, finding out about things that you don't see just visiting the lot, or aerial photographs, looking at a wetlands mapper online.
Ultimately, it's a wetlands assessment, so we'll
Yes.
potentially have the wetlands assessment completed in conjunction with the surveyor. So we'll piggyback those, so we get that topography and boundary survey and everything like that. And so, regarding segueing on the financing as well, this is a constant theme we're going to bring up, is that we also have builder financing as well, where Wettermann Homes can finance the project, meaning the client will come, say, with a 20% deposit, we'll finance the build, meaning we have lenders that will finance us to take care of the costs, and then you as the buyer would just be responsible for an end loan. You wouldn't have to go through the construction loan process. That's really advantageous especially for your international clients who, with exchange rates and things like that, or
banking laws,
banking laws and accounts,
restrictions,
and
I
things
should
like that.
say.
So, yeah. Well, let's not put too fine a point on it. And so, segueing into that, we've been active. There's a lot of activity out that we're finding, get a lot of calls on clients obviously looking to build. None of them actually own the lot, so we're doing a lot of due diligence. And so what I've done, we build in one of the specific areas that we have more experience is the community of Wedgefield, which is about 20 minutes east of Lake Nona for those that aren't in Central Florida. Central Florida is basically the Lake Nona area-ish. It's offset, a little bit more rural but developed. And so there's large lots there. They were platted for 1 acre plus. There's a lot of wetlands in there, so that requires us to do more extensive due diligence, meaning we were covering that with the wetlands assessment and things like that. And so we're doing a lot of lot searching for the clients, because ultimately people want to get as much what we call uplands. That's the opposite of wetlands, meaning dry lands, if you want to use a different nomenclature. And so I went through all the lots in this community of Wedgefield and reviewed them for, it has to have at least a wetlands assessment completed that I look. Some of the lots, out of 70 lots, maybe I found 12 that me as a builder say, okay, there's enough uplands here where we can minimize the amount of wetlands mitigation, meaning we're going to have to encroach on wetlands, and that's a process because it has to be evaluated. How much is that going to cost? There is a cost to mitigating wetlands, and so that has to be offset. Usually we're paying for that, and it's a dollar value per 0.1 acre of mitigation. This is all
And mitigation is
we're impacting
your
the
building,
wetlands.
your buildable area is moving into protected wetlands.
We're encroaching on the wetlands, and so we need to offset that. For the most part, that's a monetary cost to do that, and there is a cost per certain size of mitigation that wetlands that we have to encroach on. And so what I did was, and this is a note to realtors as well, I know some sellers will not go through and do the assessments, and I won't evaluate a lot that does not at least have a wetlands assessment. And I can say this because I also own a lot there, and I will not put a lot on the market that hasn't at least had the wetlands permit done. And so most of the lots don't even have that. They just have a wetlands assessment. The assessment is then submitted to get the wetlands permit, which is the approval from the county that we're all acknowledging the wetlands, and then we can go ahead with the building permit. In any case, so I've gone through, assessed these lots for the maximum amount of uplands that I believe is good and buildable, and then I've assessed those lots per square foot of uplands, meaning there's a list of lots and it's here's how much uplands there are per square foot, here's the price of the lot, and then it's basically a sorted list of the cheapest lots with the most buildable area that I assessed as a builder. And so I think there's 12 lots out of 70 that I'm assessing, that I'm forwarding to my buyers and saying, here's the lots, take a look, because they range in size from 1 acre up to 3+ acres, and obviously everybody has a budget or they don't want certain land. So there's a variety of options there for our buyers to choose from. So I say that's part of the service that we provide to our buyers, and that's a note to real estate agents that your sellers are missing out when they don't do that due diligence up front for the buyers. You're asking the buyer to take a risk that, in my opinion, as a seller as well, we should be bearing that cost. It's $1,000 to $1,200 to get this assessment done. And if you expect somebody to pay $100,000 to $200,000 to $300,000 for a lot, not to pay that much is really a disservice to yourself as a seller or your client as a seller. So I'm a little stern on that because I go through that.
It's kind of like having the wetlands assessment, I guess to some degree with a seller, some sellers may feel like they're uncovering, something negative about their lot. And it's like, okay, well, you should be uncovering that as soon as possible. Probably should have had it done when they bought the lot.
It's something that's already there. It's like, there. I don't want to go to the hospital because they're going to find out something's wrong.
Yep.
Something's wrong.
Yeah.
So
and what Kurt is detailing is, it's kind of like a price per square foot. We're going to evaluate the lot based on the uplands, not the total square footage or acreage. So, for example, Wedgefield has a lot of 1 acre lots, typically 150 by 330.
150 by 300 is the standard.
Give or take, some could be a little bit wider, some could be narrower, some are narrower. And so a lot of buyers, through no fault of their own, will look at a lot and be like, oh, it's 1 acre, great. Well, why do these prices vary? Because the buildable area, and as Kurt mentioned, uplands, which is, you could say dry land. We should also get into the specifics about what is a wetland, and that differs. And we may have covered this before, but because it's so important, I think it behooves us to get into those details again. Difference between wetlands and a flood zone or floodplains or all this kind of stuff. They're very different. They have different designations, and they affect the buildable area significantly. And so what Kurt was detailing was, we are evaluating the price of a lot, not on the size of the lot, but on the buildable area of the lot. So the exact same 1 acre lot, you could have two the exact same sizes side by side. One could be $150,000 and one could be $50,000, because the $50,000 one is all wetlands. The $150,000 one could be all uplands, so it's all dry. There's no restrictions as far as buildable area. We can go into the county and submit a permit to build after having done the wetlands assessment, correct? So the wetlands assessment says, hey, we've had somebody come out and assess the lot, there's no wetlands, and then we submit that with the permit pack, and the county says, okay, great, you're unrestricted for the most part.
So you have an exemption, meaning you can avoid getting it's called a CAI permit, the Conservation Area of Impact. So once you get the wetlands permit, then they have to evaluate how you're placing the house on the lot and the impacts and things like that.
And we're getting very specific about the terminology here, because if you can't use these terms interchangeably, because they all mean something different to the county. And that matters, because if you're submitting a permit, you can get into some trouble or some complications if it's either A, not explained to you correctly, or there's miscommunication, or something's not.
And that
done
never
correctly.
happens, right?
Yeah. And so building a house and clearing land and everything can come with its own set of variables, let alone having incorrect information, just
right.
to say.
So. And so the thing about wetlands too is, this is not just the front half is dry and the back half is wetlands or something like that. The wetlands go all the way around like this. So you might have a peninsula of wetlands that you have to mitigate, and the front all might be dry. But even if you impact the most minute amount of wetlands, it doesn't matter. You have to go through the process. And now we have buffers. And so, as an example, previously you had to have a 25-foot buffer between the house and the wetlands to avoid mitigation and bypass the process. Now it's 50 feet. And so these are the challenges and things we deal with the county and environmental protection departments, that these criteria change from year to year. And so sometimes you can offset that 50-foot buffer by extending that buffer in somewhere else. And so again, this is why we have site engineers that will help us with drainage. We had an issue with that on this last build. We didn't have an issue that we overcome. We had to pivot because in the community of Wedgefield, there's very extensive grading and draining plans that we have to follow. And so it's very intricate, which to us is not a problem because that's what we do. But instead of doing grading from the back of the house to flow to the front where all the drainage canal was, we changed it to actually retention. So these are the things that we work with, especially with a site engineer. What's the difference between drainage to convey water somewhere or to retain water in retention areas? Those serve the same purpose, but they are completely different, meaning we have to follow these grading plans. And so those are the things that we take into account.
And we cannot stress this enough. When Kurt says it, sounds like, oh, drainage and retention, yada, blah, 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 whatever. It's like, well, those things are very different because drainage, you have to start building things up. Well, how do you do that? You have to bring in fill. Okay, well, that costs money. Well, how much fill? Well, in some cases, that could have been $20,000 worth of fill, as opposed to retention where you're just digging out, and so the water's running. So now you're talking about, oh, just save $20,000. Well, that's, you have to go to a client and say, well, we had to, build up the pad because we need to change the drainage because something, there was a change. So these are, it sounds minute, it sounds kind of like trivial, but these are...
Yeah, except when you get the bill for $20,000 that we helped avoid / offset. And so that's why having these quality, I guess, subcontractors or trade partners that know this stuff and can go to the county or can say, hey, you should do retainage as opposed to drainage, because in order to drain, you might have to build the back of the pad up so that drains forward, as opposed to retention where it will hold, and then you can get everything lower. So that's kind of a visualization there.
Which kind of speaks to talking about the difference between wetlands and flood zones. Wetlands, if there's wetlands on a lot, that doesn't necessarily mean that the lot is wet. It's a designation of water on the property over a certain amount of time, and so then it leads, okay, well, if a property has wetlands and it's not wet, how do you determine that? It's like, well, it's usually done by certain types of vegetation,
soil and vegetation
analysis. And so, which is different from the flood zone. That's over, 100 years or so. Yeah. Correct us in the chat.
Completely different. Yeah.
Totally different.
No association. I mean, I say no association. All that's very definitive, but yeah, they're two completely different things. And it's a question we get all the time. That's why we reiterate that, because it's very important. It's a very good question, and it can be very complex here, obviously in the state of Florida and Central Florida, because we're so low lying. When you start digging down 5-10 feet, you just created a pond there, and so those are circumstances that we have to deal with. Consequently, because we build with a lot of drain field and septic tanks, those are all things we have to consider.
In building in a flood zone, typically you build the pad up. It's like, okay, well, you build it up a certain height, you can get out of the flood zone. You can't do that with wetlands. You can't just say, oh, we'll build the pad up, because wetland says you can't build into this area because of certain designations. So hopefully that explains it or doesn't breed more questions.
No, if it always, hopefully if it,
just give us a call.
You call, text, or email.
Hopefully that explanation means this is why you should call us first.
Yeah.
So.
Or if that breeds more questions, then call, text, or email. Our contact information should be plastered everywhere. Obviously, we have all social media, so you can always DM us or anything like that with any questions. We're always happy to answer them. If this does bring about more questions, great. That means you're in the market and we can help you. So,
another thing I wanted to point out real quick is, aside from wetlands and floodplains and all that, is when evaluating a lot too, there's other considerations. One of our biggest variable costs is clearing, grading, and fill. And so that's simply enough. We have a budget for clearing a lot, meaning removing the trees and the vegetation, and then you have fill, which is the dirt we bring in to get the pad up to a buildable area, and then grading, which is making the lot look really nice.
Buildable height.
Buildable height. Yeah. What we in the business call finished floor elevation. And so that is very important, because that will have a great impact or a big impact on the price of the lot, or the cost to build, I'm sorry. And so we could look at two lots. Let's just say, for example, they don't have any wetlands, so we're good to go, and there's two lots side by side or in different areas. Depending on how low the lot is, will have a tremendous effect on our evaluation on what you should pay, because if a lot is low lying and it's got a lot of trees on it, well, when you remove trees, once you remove a tree, you got a big hole. You got to fill that in with dirt. And so it's compounded twice. Is you're removing a lot of trees and it's low lying. And so I don't get too far into the weeds here, so to speak, but the finished floor elevation should be 18 inches above the crest of the road.
It depends where. Again, specifically the area of Wedgefield, it's 18 inches. Some are 12 inches above the crest, the highest point in the crest of the road in front of the house.
So, and I just say that without getting too far into it, is when, and this is just kind of a little bit of a helpful trick in evaluating how low or high lying the lot is. If you're standing on the road and it looks like the lot is below where your feet are, probably going to be a bit more expensive, even if the lot doesn't have any wetlands, because now you're having to bring in a lot of dirt, as opposed to if you're standing on the road and it looks like the lot is flat with the road and there's no trees, I'm like, well, then you're really good. The lot may be more expensive, but your cost to build could be significantly reduced. Anyway, so.
And do we have any questions come in? Nope. Come on, guys.
New Year hangover, it's okay.
Yeah,
that's
right.
okay.
We're all good.
Yep.
So, and we're a little bit early, so we'll just leave it off with thanks for joining, our closing remarks. We're going to send you out text reminders. We always send out an email. We always send out a text reminding you. We'll be doing that again. Usually we're trying to make it bi-weekly. If you have questions, usually we'll bring those up and hold them over for next week. We'll answer your questions directly, but if they're mostly questions, we'll bring them back up in the next live stream. So
feel free to reply to our email that goes out if you do have a question. Just simply, hey, could you guys touch on this topic real quick, or whatever you have. We'd love to have your questions.
So here's the share, like, and comment, follow, and subscribe.
Kurt hates when you say smash, so I came up. Please place a modicum of pressure on the thumb button.
Yeah. So, and please follow our Wettermann Homes. We have all the social media, TikTok, I was going to say live stream, LinkedIn, Instagram, all that, because they do have thresholds in order for us to do the live stream on certain platforms, so that does help.
And make sure, as our mom would say, check us out on Face Page.
Yeah,
Face
Page.
Good one.
Yeah, she'll be watching. So again, DM us questions. We'd be happy to help. We love interacting. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you all next 2 weeks, or in the meantime, if you need
2
anything.
weeks.
Nice.
2 weeks.
Movie quote.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
All right, take care, everybody.